Well, good evening, everybody. We'd like to welcome you tonight to our Planning Commission meeting for April the 3rd, and glad everybody's here. We're going to get started this evening. We like to note that everybody is present with the exception of Mr. Millsaps, and so we have a quorum. And so we're going. Pardon me, Ms. Stringfellow. She's here. She just walked in. Yeah. That's good. So we have everybody but Mr. Millsaps, so we have a quorum. All right. Tonight we have two public hearings. First is to request to hear comments regarding the proposed 2018-19 Annual Action Plan, second year, covering the period from July 1, 2018 to June 30, 2019. The action plan is a requirement for the City of Hendersonville to receive funds through the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program of the U.S. Department of Housing, Urban and Development. The action plan is part of the 2017 to 2022 consolidated plan and is a plan for utilizing CDBG funds allocated to the City of Hendersonville. And we have nobody signed up for that hearing, so we'll declare that one closed. Then we also have a hearing request by Bassland Development Partnership to approve the revised final development plan for Glenbrook North, located on the east and west sides of Andrews Run, north of Glenbrook Way, totaling 25.95 acres, identified as Sumner County Property Tax Map 144 parcels 102.3, 102.8, and 103. And we have no one signed up for that hearing as well, so we will declare that hearing closed. Item number 3, is there any request for information and assistance by the Commission? Hearing none. Additions to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Item number 5, minutes of March 6. Do we have a motion to move to approve by, moved by Ms. Ashley, second by Mr. Altizer. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. If you'll look at your consent agenda, item number 6, we got an abstention? Key McCormick. Anybody else abstaining? Okay. If you look at consent agenda, we've got several items there. Glen Oak Shopping Center, Hendersonville Business Park, Indian Lake Village, Phase 8, Section A, New Shackle Point, Saundersville North, and Villages of Stony Brook, Section 1. Is there any one of these items that any one of the commissioners would like to pull? Okay, we have a motion to move and group and approve. We have a second by Ms. Stringfellow, moved by Ms. Ashley. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Item number 6 is approved. Consent agenda. We move now to item number 7. We have no final plats. Item number 8, preliminary and final development plans. And tonight we're starting with Glenbrook North Village, which is a resubmittal. And Mr. Free, who's handling this one?
Yeah, Grant Green will give just a brief overview, and then Grant and I are available to answer any questions on this.
Mr. Green.
Thank you, sir. This is actually a resubmittal of a 2017 project, and essentially what we're looking at on this is it has a decrease in the number of residential dwellings and an increase in commercial square footage, which essentially came to a substantial change in the development, which allowed for a resubmittal. The current proposal has 297 dwellings, 110 of which are mixed use and above commercial space. It also includes 73,000 square feet of commercial space, maximum of 4 stories. Most of the buildings are 2 to 3 stories. And there was a request to add animal care and vet services as a use on the amendment. And also, essentially, it's the same waivers as requested in 2017, which included playground size and clubhouse and height, which essentially were all issues with the changes in ordinances from the time of the original approval, and just kind of address that, and they have provided some amenities to kind of address that as well. Let's see, they also have added a dog park as part of this submittal on the northern portion of the development, and that's one of the additional amenities that they've added.
Do we have anybody here from the developer? Okay. If you would, sir, if you just step to that microphone and give us your name and everything, and we'll recognize you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. My name is Ken Renner. I am a vice president with Vast Land Companies. We are the people who have proposed this development. We appreciated very much the commission's support back in last November, and hope that we've made some improvements in the project that would even earn some more support. After the vote here, when we went to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, there were several issues raised concerning the development related to dwelling units and traffic and, you know, some more amenities. And that is something that we have tried to address in the substantial changes we've made. We have had a 10% reduction in the number of dwelling units. It was 330, it's now 297. We've had roughly a 9% increase in the commercial to address the concern that was expressed about maybe too much cutting of commercial and cutting of sales tax revenues. We've also, with those changes, have come up with a 20% reduction in overall traffic from the current plan, the current shopping center plan. And we also have corrected the revenues on the that this will raise for the city of Hendersonville and for Sumner County. When it's fully developed, we believe it'll raise about $550,000 annually for the city and roughly $500,000 for the county, and that's on an annual basis. I'll ask Jeff Hines, our land planner, to address some other concerns.
Why don't you give them those handouts which have some of those points. As Ken mentioned, I'm Jeff Hines with Catalyst Design Group. The last time we were before this group, some faces are familiar and some are new. So offer a little bit of background on this proposal. This is a mixed-use proposal in the sense of there's integration of mixed uses both horizontally on the site within proximity to one another, as well as vertically within some of the buildings, the mixed-use buildings that you see. The pattern book that you have in your packet gives you some very clear ideas of the style of development we're talking about here, how the retail interrelates with the residential and interrelates with the mixed use where it is retail on the ground floor and residential uses above. Last time we spoke about some examples of this, and there were some questions on your part of, you know, what is one of these, and we spoke about Berry Farms in the Franklin area. I think one of you was familiar with that and had done some research. You know, West Haven certainly is that way in the Franklin area also. I realize this is a little bit something new that architecturally and planning-wise this body may not have seen. But it is a lifestyle for a certain sector of the population that really want to be able to walk to some amenities, walk to a restaurant. You know, that's the advantage that this style of living has. So this is all for sale ownership with the condominiums, townhomes. It is not a rental product in any way. I think it's important for you to know that. I will mention one thing with Ken. I did in those traffic numbers there, I think it is a 17% reduction in the traffic from what it's approved for now. And as he said, what we heard in the last time in conversations was that the concern with the residential and the AM peak and going down the units certainly helped that from a traffic standpoint. And the retail upped a little bit where we were on the PM peak before, but it's still substantially lower than what the current zoning of 184,000 square feet, and really there's a final development plan in place for that. So given those criteria, love to answer any questions you might have, but hopefully the pattern book gives you an example and some great images as far as what this proposal is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. I guess the best thing to do would be to note, first of all, they do agree with all staff comments that are placed before us, noting that this particular submittal passed this body before, obviously, and was recommended to VOMA for approval. The issues that tend to come up in this always and probably will come up again, but It's the traffic issue, obviously, coming down Andrews Run. If I recall, there was an issue on Forest Retreat Road, down a little bit with a bridge. And have we addressed that at all?
Well, we are, and it's in the plans rather than notes now, we are fully widening Forest Retreat to the western boundary of this site and then tapering beyond that point. So that is shown in the plans rather than noted. The first sheet to your packet, and it may have been second in yours based on the printer, but it has red text on it, and those are all the changes between last time and this time with the plan. The memo that he just gave you helps to summarize that in terms of the bullet points, and you can see the differences. So I will offer that just as a help to this body to see the difference of where we were before and now.
The 17% reduction that you're talking about in traffic, what does that represent? At what level of occupancy?
100%
Okay.
of the build-out, and that is compared to the traffic study that was done back when the original plan was approved. But it has been updated for new land use codes in Institute of Traffic Engineers, meaning it's
Right.
taking today's standard of how much retail, commercial generates and how much residential of the different types generates.
And in your studies, and probably in past historical values that you guys have, how long is the build-out and for occupancy to get up to 100%?
Well, the one thing that I did not address, and staff felt very strongly about for this body and for the city and protect the city, is there is a phasing plan now
Right.
in the pattern book. And the market will determine that because we can only do so many residential units before we have to begin both one commercial unit and one mixed-use unit. So that was in the notes last time from staff. It has now been translated into an actual phasing plan that's in the pattern book. And I think staff in the report has kind of shared some colored examples of that that we saw. So the market will determine that since we're tied in of all phases. But I think there's, and you know, Ken and Vaseline can certainly verify this, there's a strong interest in this product. I think the retailers, and you may have shared this, the retailers out at the current Glenbrook Center are interested in the support that additional residential will bring to them in terms
Right.
of retail in today's environment for some larger stores and big box users. So they are supportive of this.
I think anything we can do to alleviate traffic concerns, and I don't want to catch you like flat-footed, but if you had to take that overall 17% reduction by phase, what are we looking at over the course of the phasing?
Well, when you say by phase, I guess it is
Because
basically
you're
a
basing
third.
it, excuse me, you're basing it on 100% occupancy, your 17% numbers.
Correct.
And the traffic's going to be one of the main issues. So to help concerns of citizens, and we've got quite a few aldermen here tonight, that we could sit here and say, what is that going to translate to into actual numbers based on occupancy levels by phase?
I think we can look at it by phase, but basically, the residential is a major reduction in the PM peak.
Right.
And a very slight increase in the AM peak.
Right.
The reduction in commercial takes a lot of trips at build out of the current plan, a lot of trips off the afternoon rush hour, peak hour from 4 to 6. So we can look at it by phase and break this down further. But basically there's 4 phases throughout the plan. It is an overall reduction of 1,700 and 1,800 trips. So basically that would be divided by 4 phases since it's broken out evenly.
So that
If that
gives,
helps.
I mean, it's not full science, but it helps us to kind of get some bearings in mind, put a number to it to help us. All right? Any other commissioners have questions? Mr. Robertson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm a new member, so I may ask some redundant questions that you've already answered, but I would appreciate
Certainly.
your indulgence.
One of the, I reviewed the transcript of BOMA's meeting where this plan was rejected. And one of the motions, I believe, by Alderman Brown was to make sure that the commercial buildings didn't lag too far behind the residential. Did I just understand you to say that the commercials are not going to be, by phase, I understand the phase aspect of it, but even on phase one, that the commercial buildings in phase one will not begin until sometime after the residential units are started?
I think the residential units would start. The phase is that there can be 75 residential units, but no more than that out of the number until there is roof truss framing and wall framing in place on 2 of the commercial, or 1 of the mixed use and 1 of the fully retail uses. The timing on that, the infrastructure for the entire site would be put in at one time, meaning the streets, the sewer, the roads.
Sure.
To service all these pads. And then the residential townhomes would probably be the first to begin, with the retail pads beginning shortly thereafter. So basically, in timing, the retail does not lag behind, no.
It does not.
It does not.
So will the commercial or retail buildings begin prior to the beginning of the residential? Provide me the sequence that you, I understand the infrastructure will be put in, but I mean, I think Alderman Brown specifically said he wanted to see some blocks, some building going up before residential, before the first occupancy permit was allowed, was issued.
Let me mention that that amendment that Alderman Brown offered is now part of the final development plan. It's contained, I believe, in the plan itself. Yeah. That no more than 75 residential units can be constructed until we've got the framing and wall construction underway for the commercial. We can't do any more, and I will tell you that we want to do more. Because the longer that site sits, the more money we're losing. We want to get this thing done as quickly as the market will allow.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're aligned with what that request was. So he was in agreement with the phasing. As I remember, and I was there, his comment was to be certain that there was phasing, and I think Alderman Gilley also had a comment looking at the contribution that is in there now as part of the commitment of the $50,000, and dividing that by the number of rooftops too, and looking at it almost as an impact fee standpoint. So.
All right, so the phasing's been addressed. Mr. Roberts, do you have any other questions?
A lot.
Go ahead.
On phase 2 of your plan that you have listed, that you provided to us, you've got that after phase 2, there's 41 residential units remaining. Am I reading that correctly? The blue at the top, it says 146 will be built, 41 remaining.
I think that is staff's summation of the phasing, but let me pull that here.
Okay.
That is a staff comment.
Yeah.
Well, give me yours then. At phase 1, how many residential units will remain to be built?
After phase 1,
after phase 2, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, phase 1 and 2 would be a maximum of 150 residential units out of the 297. And at the end of phase 1 and 2, there would be 2 retail buildings and 2 mixed-use buildings under construction or completed at that point.
Building 1, which is the largest building of, what, 50 or 60 residential units?
Building 1 is condominium plats, and it has 54 units.
54.
Right.
And that unit did not change as a result of the revisions.
Correct. We spread out the reduction amongst different buildings.
Some of the buildings will have parking spaces, is that correct? Covered parking?
Building 1 is, portion of the required parking is under structure, yes. The townhomes will all have 2-car garages, and the condominiums, buildings 2 and 3, would be surface parking. In the rear, the building is pulled up to the street edge, so it's screened by the building.
Can you give me an estimate of what you think the price of the townhomes and condominiums will be?
It's going to range from about $200,000 at the low end to probably a little over $400,000 on the high end, probably around $425,000.
And I noticed that you requested a waiver of the 1985 master plan regarding a clubhouse.
Correct. The amenities for this are, there's several, and I think we summarized them and then staff did also, but the clubhouse in the old ordinance was back in the days where a community had a building designated per se as a clubhouse, where many of the condominium buildings will have a fitness center built in, will have a work business center built in where residents can go to. So it's really serving the purpose in each of the buildings of both mixed use and the condominium buildings, that a clubhouse takes that place in kind of the older thinking and planning.
Well, and also I think it's important to know that some of these amenities are going to be provided by the retail tenants in there. You know, a FedEx Kinko's would be a great retail tenant to give us office services. A fitness center, a CrossFit or something like that would be a great tenant for some of our residents. So a lot of this is going to be done with the combined retail that's in there.
And then I think staff summarized that we are providing several amenity uses in different areas: the community garden, playground, dog park. There is a pool and surrounding area with restroom facilities shown. So if you look at that as bits and pieces, I think they added it up and came up with a total representative of kind of what the older ordinance would have said in that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Ms. Silkwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How are you all?
Oh, doing well.
Thanks for coming here tonight. Like Mr. Robertson, I am new to the commission as well, so perhaps you can give me a little more information. Has there been a formal traffic study that's been done?
There was a traffic study, 2 things. Traffic projections were done prior to this body, and we provided them. I think the city engineer reviewed them and agreed with that. Between the time of BOMA taking action and disapproving that first plan in the 8 to 7, I think it was, a formal traffic study was done and submitted into the city. I don't think it's been fully approved, and of course now the numbers would be different. So a traffic study was done, it was reviewed by staff, then the project was put on hold because it was not approved. So that study will need to be redone as part of coming back before you for site plan.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just anecdotally, I've heard that there's a lot of issues with traffic, especially at rush hour in the morning and evening already over that way. So I took some time today and kind of drove out that way just to see what the roads are like. And it's, you know, wonderful through the actual Glenbrook shopping complex. But as you sort of venture out, sort of an alternative way, you know, if you're leaving the house in the morning, if you're living in your development and you're trying to get to 386, and instead of heading down through Target and past Steinmart and all of that, because there's a lot of traffic that apparently is already there in the morning, you know, people will find alternative routes. So they'll cut down Forest Retreat and some of these other roads. So I drove those other roads today down to Hunts Lane and even to Free Hill Road. Those roads are extremely narrow. They're very windy country roads with no shoulder, and I'm frankly very concerned about that. I know that's not something that you can necessarily address, and I do appreciate that you are willing to widen the road a little bit just to your, sort of the end of your property line there. But as far as alleviating the traffic flow through those residential areas and down those country roads, I don't think that widening it just to your property line is going to do very much for
No,
that.
you're right, but the unique thing about this site as compared to a greenfield site is this site is previously approved for 184,000 square feet. So the comparison of traffic, you can look at it
It's
to
less.
nothing being there today, or you can compare it to a full build-out of what it's currently approved for. And I think that is our argument. If we were a greenfield site coming in here, certainly, you know, it's a perspective that you share that, you know, you're generating new traffic that would not be there under any other circumstance. In our case, we have an approval that allows 184,000 square feet, and that's what the comparison is in those notes I provided. So effectively, this proposal reduces the traffic from what could be there, which is a little different.
I'm sorry, we did have our traffic engineer prepare.
Could you speak into the mic?
I'm
We
sorry.
can't hear you. I'm so sorry.
We did have our traffic engineer prepare an updated count on the traffic in that area as a result of the changes. Unfortunately, I've only got 2 copies, but I'd like
No, it's
to
in the
enter them.
packet.
Oh, is it in the
It's in
packet?
their packet.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good.
Okay?
Thank
Ms.
you.
Silkwood? Okay. Mr. Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to commend the developer for the changes that have been made. We looked at this project very carefully the last time that you were before this board. As a planner by trade, I guess, although I never have practiced it in a good long while, I'm really attracted to the mixed use nature of what we're trying to do here. That mixed use actually reduces traffic because people are not getting on 386 to go to work. They're going downstairs to go to work. And it encourages young entrepreneurs. It encourages retirees in this area. Many of these individuals that are seeking a place where they can literally live, work, and play. And the amenities that you are proposing to provide, as well as the other commercial or retail traffic that is going to be generated by these people in this development being there, I think is going to be a true asset for our city. I think one of the things that we're always trying to look at as far as the Planning Commission is concerned is just not how many more houses or developments can we approve, but what are those quality, unique, different sort of options that we can provide for the citizens of this community. And I think you've done a good job to address it. You've also addressed some of the concerns from some of the individuals on the traffic. True, we are all living in an area where we never imagined that Hendersonville would grow to the size that it is, and there are traffic concerns. I do understand that, but I do think this is something that is really unique. As you recall, I said I was excited about this project the last time. I'm more excited about it now, and I want to thank you for what you've done, for addressing the concerns of not only some of our commission members, but some of our council members, BOMA members, and so I really do hope that this is a project that can go forward. If you look at cities across the country, this is where we're going. You look at the prime locations in Williamson County. You know, we always say, why can't we be more like Brentwood and Williamson County and Franklin? Here's an opportunity for us to be more like that sort of community. And prime areas of Davidson County, where the real estate is much more expensive than it is here. We see this mixed-use development going in because it is popular, it is what people want, and I hope we'll have an opportunity to let you really build something unique and beneficial for this community.
Thank you. We try to listen, and I will say, just to put numbers to it, that about 10% of the residential units are live-work units. It doesn't mean a resident has to use it that way, but it does provide that opportunity for a real estate and architect, a financial consultant to have their office. Great thing because it's a tax deduction downstairs. The building will look different. It has on-street parking out front. It's limited in square footage within the notes here. The uses are limited within the notes, but it lets a more professional type user use their ground floor, and it can be a person at an art, some art or a music teacher or whatever. We've limited all those things, but it's low impact uses than an individual, so that's 10% of the residential units.
Okay, Mr. Hines, Ms. Petrelli.
Oh, it's Stringfellow.
Oh, Ms. Stringfellow, I'm
That's okay.
sorry.
We're probably moved around.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Lee said everything I wanted to say, plus more, and I really appreciate your being excited about it because it's in my area, and I'm excited. I go over there every week to Glenbrook, and I think we really do need something really nice on that side of town, so I'm really in favor of that. Traffic is a nightmare no matter where you go, so I don't think that will be that much of a problem. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stringfellow. Yeah, your light says Ms. Petrelli.
I'm sorry. That's my
We'll have to
name.
make a note of that technical.
Well,
Oh,
we got
boy.
moved.
We'll add that to the punch sheet. Okay, there are no more lights, no more aldermen wishing, or excuse me, commissioners wishing to speak. Do I have a motion to recommend approval? Mr. Lee, we got a motion, we got a second? Excuse me, the motion needs to be with all waivers as well.
Waivers.
Okay? I want to state it one more time for the record, so the mic wasn't on. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee.
Oh.
All staff comments and waivers.
Absolutely. All staff comments and waivers.
All right, we have a second by Ms. Stringfellow. Any more discussion? Okay, we will do a roll call vote on this. Ms. Beery.
Am I on? Oh, okay. Altizer?
Yes.
Okay. Ashley?
Yes.
Jenkins?
Yes?
Lee?
Yes.
Brian McCormick?
Yes.
Okay. Petrelli?
No.
Roberson?
Yes.
Silkwood? No. Stringfellow?
Okay, so.
That is 7 and 2.
7 yea, 2 nay?
Mhm.
Okay, it's recommended to go forward to BOMA.
Thank you,
very
folks.
much. Okay, we move on to site plans, and we have the Streets of India Lake signage tower. Mr. Free, who's handling that one?
That'll be Timothy Whitten.
Mr. Whitten.
All right, so y'all, the Planning Commission last saw this project as a final development plan amendment a couple of months ago. The amendment was to increase the building height to allow for a tower. The purpose of the tower is so they can use the walls of it to get some signage on it and get some exposure to 386 traffic. So before you tonight is the site plan. The proposal is the same as what you saw before, just in the form of a site plan, with more detail as to the civil engineering. And the applicants have agreed to all staff comments.
Okay, noting that they've agreed to all staff comments, any questions by commissioners? We have a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Robertson, second. Second by Mr. Altizer. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, it is passed, so ordered. And then we go to second now is magnetic hold. And they've got a site plan that's in question with a waiver request. Mr. Free is, who's going to be talking?
That'll be me.
Okay.
I'll cover that one.
Okay, Mr. Free.
This item that's coming before you tonight, this is actually related to a site plan that was approved back in November the 7th of 2017 by the Planning Commission for a development. And on that, as you can see in the staff comments that were done by Sidney Simpson, it kind of shows on there it was accepted with the staff comments, and actually on the plan that the payment in lieu would be provided by the developer to cover the cost for improvements along Rockland Road. Since that time, the developer has reached back out to city staff and did not express, and the developer is here, the owner is here, and may want to speak here in just a little bit. But the owner has expressed that, he was not aware of the cost associated with that. And I think wanted the opportunity to come back before the Planning Commission to request a waiver of providing that payment in lieu. It could have been something that could have been done at the time it was submitted. So from time to time, we do get people that request waivers of some of these things. And just keep in mind also is what the whole waiver process is typically when you're doing subdivision or you're doing a development, if there are improvements that are needed along the roadway that it fronts, typically you just go ahead and provide that, whether it's sidewalk, curb, maybe widen the road, provide more right-of-way, you just kind of go ahead and do that. But in some situations, like Rockland Road, we have situations where, if somebody went ahead and did that, it would kind of look weird. Plus, we may come back at a later date and do a significant improvement, then may have to just rip it all up. So we give an alternative in those cases where a developer or an owner could provide a payment in lieu. And in this specific instance, the owner is requesting to consider that to be waived.
Okay, is the owner here, would like to speak? If you step to the microphone and introduce yourself, and you have the mic.
Thank you. My name is Shay Ghaffari, the owner of Magnetic Hold Company. Currently, we operate out of a building in Goodlettsville, Tennessee, and I employ a total of 4 people right now, including myself. And the company has been growing steadily with this great economy, and it's time to expand. And I myself, my family, we live in Hendersonville, just built a house down in Walden Ferry Road, and we like to move our business here as well, down Rockland Road. We purchased a lot over there, and it's going to suit us well. And the building we're going to put up there is going to be a one-level building, and the cost is estimated around $900,000. And with that said, that's quite a bit of money for a small business like ours. And when I saw that, of course, there's a note on the plan talking about the fee for expansion and improvements. This was not brought to my attention, and also the dollar amount was not brought to my attention, being about $12,400. And for a small company like us and growing, that's a lot of capital money that's going to be taken away from us that's going to be put towards our business and make it grow. We have, last year we did well over $2 million with 4 people. And this year, in first quarter, we did, actually the first quarter we did what we did in 6 months last year. So we're growing fast, and we need a larger place. And all I'm asking that this fee be waived, considering that Rockland Road, there are no plans, immediate future plans to improve on it, whether expand it or put curbs or sidewalks on it. I'm asking this body of people to waive that fee to help us grow and put more money back into our community. And the amount of property taxes we're going to be paying for that building over the years, actually I was told within 2 years that $12,000 is going to be well recovered for any future expansion of that road. So I'm just asking to help us keep our capital and make this business grow and get bigger for our community and hire more people.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ghaffari. Let me turn
It's Ghaffari, I'm sorry.
Ghaffari, I'm sorry.
Ghaffari, that's okay.
Let me, I stand corrected. I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay. You're not the first one.
Let me turn to Mr. Boyd real quick. Marshall, can you talk to us a little bit about the Rockland Road? Or what improvements, other than what Mr. Ghaffari is talking about, are there any improvements?
Well, I think years ago, the city had plans to improve that road. And where the improvements included, sidewalk, curb and gutter, 3 lanes of asphalt. I think since that's happened, I think the city may have redirected our efforts in other parts of town, and I don't know that we really have any plans to widen that road in the future. I think that the thought was we would take the money that we had set aside in the TIP for Rockland and move that over to using that for an access control project on Main Street. But as of now, no decision has been made yet. I think we've discussed it internally, but we haven't formally made that change.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boyd. Ms. Silkwood. I got you.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say thank you for being here tonight, and I appreciate you moving your business from Goodlettsville to Hendersonville, and to me, this makes complete sense. I think it's an excellent trade-off, and plan to support it.
Okay. Mr. Lee.
Yes, how many more employees do you anticipate hiring as a result of your move, and if things continue to...
If things continue the way they're going, I would imagine 8 to 10 easily within the next 45 years. Like I said, we have done this, the amount of business that we've done right now this year so far is what we did last year, 6 months of last year. So economy is booming, and our business is, we cater to a lot of industries and companies and factories. There's no foot traffic. We don't cater to public, just like I said, OEM factories and companies out there. And we provide magnets and magnetic assemblies for a variety of applications. We don't cater to just one industry. Just every industry you name out in the country, worldwide, or here for that matter, they use magnets for one shape or form for different applications.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Petrelli.
Thank you, Chairman. So I would like to point out, first off, and welcome to Ward 1. I'm one of the aldermen in that area, so we're excited to have you, come to that area. We do have 2 letters for folks in the audience who don't have this. One from our Mayor Jamie Clary, and also from our Mayoral Assistant for Economic Development, Rod Kirk, encouraging us to please consider the, removing the in lieu of fee. So I just wanted folks to be aware of that. Again, thank you for coming up and speaking tonight. I am going to be supporting removing the in lieu of fee. But in generally speaking about in lieu of fees, there was an email that I did send out today. I think for future projects as they come through the Planning Commission, I really would like to see them spelled out literally on our packets so that we know what we're receiving in lieu of actual sidewalks and roads and things of this nature. So that's a theory. I'd like to see the in lieu of spelled out more. In speaking about Rockland Road improvements, I was not alderman, and this goes a little bit beyond your project, so if you could bear with me.
Sure.
I was not an alderman when the proposed improvements were taken away from that road. Rockland Road has been on the Public Safety Committee agenda last month. It's going to be on there again this month. There are portions of that road where literally the shoulder has deteriorated away where the road is actually crippling apart, especially as you go to turn off to the Corps of Engineers Park. So I think it's important as a planning commissioner and an alderman that Rockland Road get back on the radar for improvements, not just as we continue to develop that area, as there is a commercial corridor on that road, but from a public works and safety standpoint. But I will vote for this for you tonight, and I appreciate you moving your business to Hendersonville. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Petrelli.
I have a motion if you're ready.
Yes, just one second. I would like to say that I too, I want to align myself with the comments of most of the other commissioners. The only thing that I want to add to the conversation for the record is, when we have these waiver requests, especially for payment in lieu of, we take them very seriously because of precedent. And that is why I asked Mr. Boyd what was in the pipeline for the Rockland Road, if there's something there. Had there been, Mr. Grafari, projects in the hopper for that, it might have been different, you know.
Understand.
And I want people to understand that this is not something we do normally. It's something that we do on a case-by-case basis when the reasons are warranted. And I'm presuming that this motion will go. It may not, but if this does go, this is why we did it, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that. Okay? Mr. Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I concur, impact fees are an important source of revenue this city uses to expand infrastructure. So impact fees are very important. And so what I've looked at in coming to a decision and a motion in this, I have looked to see if this is a reasonable request under the law. Is it a reasonable request? Because I don't want to make a motion that will get into discriminatory claims on future development. So based on that, I've come up with a few factors that I think this is a reasonable request. First of all, it has an economic development factor. And that is important for the city as we move forward to be able to attract new businesses, especially where there is employment, gainful employment as an opportunity. So it has an economic development factor. Number two, as already been mentioned by Mr. Marshall, is that there is a lack of a plan for improvement of that road in the near future. And third is because of the zoning. It is zoned for heavy industrial. If this had been commercial or any other zoning, I would be very hard to make the case. But I think in an area where it's zoned for heavy industrial, I think that sidewalks and things like that are less appealable or less usable than in other zoning areas. So based on those factors, I believe that it does meet the test of a reasonable request, and I so move that the request for waiver be granted.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Petrelli. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion granting the waiver, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Well, Ms. Atchley, no. Okay, it passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
We now move on to the TOA Indian Lake Clinic site plan. And Mr. Free, who's going to be handling that one?
That is going to be Timothy Witten.
Mr. Witten.
This is a medical office building located in Indian Lake Village next to Rocky McElhenney Law Office, south of 386 and north of Saundersville Road. The applicants have agreed to all staff comments except for planning comments number 3 and number 4. I think it may be appropriate to have the applicant address those, and then I'll know what to respond to.
Okay. If you'd introduce yourself, and we'll.
Sure. My name is Jay Fulmer. I'm with Fulmer Engineering, and I have Kevin King with Earl Swinson Architects. Thank you first. It's been great to work with staff today. They held a couple preliminary meetings with us and have been very good to work with to date. We do have a couple comments that we wanted to present to you guys, and I'll let Kevin dive into those further. But if there's any other questions that you have outside, they're both architecturally related, but if there's any questions that you have outside of that, we'll be happy to answer them for you. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go ahead and address, if we can, we've got the plan before us. Go ahead and address the items that you disagree with, and let's deal with that.
Sure. The first item would be, if you see on the top elevation, there's a stretch of the building that does not have windows in it, and I think the concern, or we were asked to place windows in that section. That houses, this is orthopedic surgeons, clinic, physical therapy, imaging center. So in that mass that's there, that block, is a MRI, which obviously puts off magnetic pull in that area. So, we felt, and I think you can see that or at least we believed we were following staff's requests to, provide as many windows throughout, especially in the physical therapy and waiting areas and all the exams. But on that area, we could put windows in, but they're going to be false. We can't, there's a magnetic pull there that will pull objects out of people's pockets, not to mention it's dangerous, just physically, other than that. So we felt like that instead of trying to fake something in there with the mass of the building, that was such a small portion that might be acceptable. And really kind of, one thing that we do in all of our buildings, we try to, it's kind of cliche, but form follows function. And that is not an area that we would want natural light into, or really is practical to do so. So that's, that's our only, or that's our request on that one, is to prevent it. Now, but to respond to that not just being a large blank wall, we've proposed that's all brick. The whole building is brick except some stone, but that area is brick, and we would project bricks randomly to give it somewhat of an artistic feel. And then we've also proposed in this to plant evergreens, excuse me, evergreens along that blank side. And you see that we have the windows in the front, we've actually gone ahead and put in, which we typically might not do. Those are into the control areas for the MRI. But TOA, the physicians and everyone were kind of okay with that, putting it into the work areas, but not, that the other side is shielded. So we've proposed evergreens that would be placed along that wall to at least give it a little bit of life year-round.
And if you look at the site plan, there is a rather...
If you would, just step up to the mic. And how long a run is that, just out of curiosity, that wall?
It's about 36 feet.
36 feet?
36 feet.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Give or take 2 feet.
And that room is in the front right corner, and if you look on the site plan, there's a large landscaped area in the front, which is adjacent to these windows, but also along the side. And so you can look at the number of parking spaces that face that wall, and it's about 4. Give you perspective of it, and it's fairly deep onto the site from the roadway.
Okay, and then tell us a little bit about, it says on my notes here, comment number 3 about the canopy with the columns.
So and again, trying to respond to staff direction at when we did meet with them, and we do appreciate that. It was very helpful. But we have proposed a 2-level canopy that would be accessible by ambulance if needed, but in most cases it's for drop-off of patients. And keeping kind of with that simple canopy area, we've proposed that there be 8 tube columns, which would just be steel columns. They all are in a brick base, but we felt keeping that kind of simple, it complemented our design as opposed to boxing those columns as square brick or stone. We did also kind of throw out there, and I'm completely willing to do that. And we have a solution, is to wrap those in a stone product that would be similar to the other stone on the building, but it would be a round column, so that it was kind of an encasement. But it's a stone product. It's not ephes or any type of synthetic material. It's a stone. But so that's.
So you'd be willing to wrap the columns? It wouldn't be wouldn't be brick, but it would be stone.
Yes, sir. Yeah. We're willing to do whatever you tell us to do.
Do you have a rendering of what that might look like, or?
Where'd that one go? Yeah, it's not the largest in the world. So this is just.
We'll start it down there and we can pass it. You can start it down there and we'll pass it all the way down.
And while they're doing that, let me ask a question. And while they're looking at this, on the north elevation, of course, the north elevation, I'm assuming to the right there on that elevation, is that a wood feature? Can somebody put up the north perspective? Yeah, there we go.
It is. It's an outdoor seating area for the employees. It's sort of a break area.
Okay, it's beautiful. My question is the way that's facing, if I'm thinking about it correctly, that area will be facing the bypass.
Correct.
Okay, and I'm wondering, would it make sense for it to face Saundersville instead of the bypass? Has anybody thought about that, or?
I'll let Kevin comment on that when he gets back, but it's intended to be a back.
It's good either way, but I was just wondering
Right.
if they thought about breaking up the building would give a little bit more pizzazz facing that major road than the bypass, but.
I think the concern is it's not intended to be for the patients. It's intended to be for
the employees?
For the employees to break.
Okay.
And to give them a spot to be outside.
All right, well then, that was just a question.
Right.
No particular one way or the other on it, just wanted to understand that.
But to your point, you can kind of, I know if you're driving down the bypass, you can see Rocky McElhenney sign.
Yeah.
And so you understand how much of this face will be able to be seen, and I'm sure it'll be enjoyed by the people using it, but not seen by many.
Yeah.
But
Any questions by commissioners? We're going to be dealing, obviously, with the waiver on comments 3 and 4, so if you have any questions about that, that would help. Ms. Petrelli.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, so visiting back to the MRI wall, so in a previous life, I worked for Gould Turner Group for 10 years and did MRIs for 20 years. Are you saying that you're going to put the jagged brick into that wall to create architectural definition? Okay. Is that anywhere else on the building? Yeah. Personally, I'm okay without the jagged brick. If you're going to put the evergreens there,
Yeah.
something that looks like an ornamental, lovely landscaping feature that
Sure,
they're going to
would be
actually
okay.
maintain, which I'm sure TUA would maintain, I think that's fine, because you're not going to really appreciate the brick.
No,
And
not
if they
really.
replace the MRI machine in 20 years, they're going to have to blow the wall out anyway. So
Right.
that's
There's
a
a
lot of work
knockout
to rip all that
Yeah,
back
there's-
out.
There's a
So
knockout there, yes.
I'm okay without the jagged brick.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a
Sure.
lovely building.
Thank you.
Mr. Whitten.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I'd like to address, particularly about the MRI section of the building. The portion of the ordinance that this runs afoul of is, it says that buildings should provide a bottom, middle, and a cap. If you look elsewhere on the building, they've done that, and they have made, staff asked for a number of tweaks, which they did respond to and did a good job of. On this portion here, you can see there's a bottom here, the water table. There's a middle formed by windows in some areas, or, a storefront, and then there's a cap. And that's, most traditional architecture has that. This is the one section of the building that did not comply with that, and that's why the staff comment is in there. My staff comment does say, one way to do that is to provide windows and/or other features to break up that half of the building. So realizing that was their imaging room, windows, or there may be other features, other ways that kind of vertical breakup could happen.
Okay.
And then on the, going back to number 3, the canopy supports, that is specifically in the design review ordinance that columns should be brick and/or stone all the way to the top. And what was suggested as far as the stone wrap, that would comply.
Would comply, okay. Okay, I believe Ms. Petrelli was first, and then Ms. McCormick.
Thank you, Chairman. So then could they just put a base and a cap to meet the requirements of that wall then?
They could, yes, they could.
Okay. Do you understand what we're talking about there? Just
Oh,
put
yeah.
a
Yeah,
base?
Yeah, we understand.
I'm just.
Is that possible?
Oh, yes, sir. It's possible, yes.
Okay. All right. Ms. McCormick.
Clear, I guess my question is more for Mr. Whitten. The part of that right section that has the windows, does that part comply to the ordinance or it doesn't? Because I don't see a bottom or a cap on it either.
It does not. So, yeah, you're correct. My comment as far as the top, middle, and cap applies to the east elevation and also the front elevation.
I think for my concern, the building is very nice, and I definitely appreciate the medical reason for not requiring windows. My concern for the commission, though, is to challenge us to think outside the box. Since I've sat on this board, we've required fake windows at Portview. We've had some other very creative things that we've come up with to comply with our rules. So I think to take a shallow approach for us to just focus on windows, I think we're doing a disservice to the ordinance. My concern is that the building is pretty, but that right half is not as attractive. Trees take time to grow. I don't feel like even just the evergreens are enough for that part, and with that being the right section, you will see that driving up down that street to the building. So for me, I don't support the waiver in that for that reason. The canopy, I'm okay with, but the side of that building, I just feel like that we're not thinking outside the box to make that side of the building attractive. I understand the medical issues with the windows, but I think there are so many more options that can help make that part of the building attractive and comply with our ordinance. So for that, I don't support the waiver for 4, but I do support the waiver for 3.
Thank you, Ms. McCormick. Ms. Atchley.
I think a very simple solution might be just to take the lighter colored brick that's on the building to the left, make the bottom and the top cap that Timothy wants, do it down the right side, and put the evergreens in. I support the stone columns, and I would be completely happy with that.
I think that is the solution, if we just put an end cap, base and an end cap.
Yeah. So just so everything's on the table there, the lighter is not brick, it's stone. So that, it still works, but I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
It'll break up that wall, though.
It will, yes, sir.
And with this, can we work with staff on whether or not we have the protruding brick? I'm not sure if our client would like it going or to remain.
I don't want to speak for the commission on that, but
I'm with Mr. Petrelli. It doesn't bother me one way or the other.
Okay.
Okay, we'll work with staff on that. Okay, so what I'm hearing is any more comments on 3 or 4? Okay, what I'm summarizing then is that we're okay with the stone wrap for the canopy on number 3, and the developer has agreed to modify the disagreement with comment number 4 to provide the base and an end cap at the top, and to plant evergreens. Am I correct in assuming that?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, so with that,
I'll make that motion.
which would be in compliance, yes. So we have a motion, I assume, to call the question with all staff comments and the revisions that are made.
That's correct. Approving 3 with the stone wrap and 4 working with staff for the bottom cap, top cap, and the evergreens.
Okay, we have that motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second by Ms. Petrelli. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all very much.
Moving on in the agenda, we have no sketch plats. Moving to preliminary plats, we have Durham Farm Phase 4. Mr. Free,
That'll be me.
you're gonna handle that one yourself, okay?
I will do that. I'll just briefly cover this. This is Durham Farms Phase 4. This is the last section of Durham Farms. The Durham Farms final development plan was approved at the last meeting, and it went to BOMA General Committee and was moving forward to the BOMA meeting, which was, I think, canceled during spring break. So it kind of put it a little bit in a lag. And so that's going next Tuesday. That'll be before BOMA. So one of the comments here is on approving this is just that it's contingent upon the final development plan being approved. Also, one other thing, and you'll see everybody was given kind of a revised staff comments that had kind of a highlighted area that was crossed out, looks like this. And what happened here was originally on the Public Works comments, and I'll let Marshall speak to it if he wanted to, but we had something on there that, hey, the property needs to be annexed prior to the final plat. One thing on this is that there's like 300 feet at the end of where the road goes all the way out to Long Hollow Pike that actually is outside of the city. There isn't any development there or anything, but the road just goes through there. And actually, it's outside of our plan area, and it's also outside of our urban growth boundary. So we're going to have to look at that. I think, and the developers here, and I think might want to speak to another issue, but in discussions with the developer, I think they're generally agreeable to annexing the property in, but we've got to figure out exactly what process to do that. It not being in the urban growth boundary does complicate the issue, and that's one reason we wanted to take it out, because it could be a situation where, for one reason or another, it's just not possible to annex that into the city.
So would that annexation potentially take place after it was
Yes.
completed?
Yeah, it could be. We're going to pursue that, and the developer, I believe, is interested in pursuing that as well, but it's not a simple annexation with it being outside the urban growth boundary. One other thing that the developer, and I think the developer's here, but that might want to discuss, is in a part of that area, there's a long stretch of where the Drakes Creek goes all the way up to Long Hollow, where there was going to be a 8-foot bike trail sidewalk on one side, and then a 6-foot sidewalk on the other side. But there's really no development that's happening up through there, and there is some rock areas where they're just going to have to cut deep into the rocks where the 6-foot sidewalk was going to be. And what the developer is requesting, and they might be able to clarify it a little bit better on the reasons why, is to eliminate the 6-foot sidewalk on that side and just do the 8-foot shared use path down through there. And that's all I had.
All right, is there anybody here from the developer that wants to speak? Okay, we're okay.
Yeah, you can.
That's fine with me. Okay, I think we have them coming. Here we go. If you would, just introduce yourself and...
Sure. Good evening. My name is Rob Whitson. I'm with Gresham Smith & Partners. I'll speak to the sidewalk issue that Mr. Free was talking about. This was an idea that came up actually from staff comments that we thought was a very legitimate and good comment, requesting that if we have sidewalks on both sides of this long stretch of road, that we have some crossings for pedestrians. And, as we dug into this issue, initially we submitted showing a plan with sidewalks on both sides, agreed that we'd work out some crossing locations for pedestrians. But as we looked at it closer, given that this long stretch of roadway has no development on it, and this northeast portion of this phase is a wooded hillside that we're trying to preserve as much as possible. If we eliminate that sidewalk on one side and just use the 8-foot multi-use trail, we can save about 23 feet of trees for this area that we're trying to preserve. And it also prevents having pedestrian crossing in straight stretches of the road as opposed to intersections, which is a safety concern. So we thought it solved a couple issues. Initially our response was that we would work out the crossing locations during construction documents, but given that this is a fairly substantial change from what we submitted on the plan, we wanted to discuss it with Planning Commission.
Okay. Any questions? They've agreed to all staff comments. Move to approve by Ms. Ashley. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Stringfellow. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. It's approved. So ordered.
Thank you.
We have no rezoning request. We have staff-approved projects that are approved. Arby's Canopy Addition, Hendersonville Medical Center, Nashville Tempered Glass, Safari's Enclosed Patio, Walmart Exterior Renovation. And then we also have staff review projects pending. Fountain Brook Phase 2, the Final Development Plan Amendment, Fountain Brook Phase 1, Sections 1 and 2, Michael Archibald property, Lot 1, Millstone PUD, Phase 12, Norman Creek, Phase 1A, Villages of Stony Brook, Section 1, Phase 5. And these require none of our action at this present time. So are there any planning director comments?
No comments, thank you.
No comments at this time. Might you have a motion?
Motion to adjourn, Chairman.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? We're adjourned.
All right.